we have visibility within every aspect of it.
Of course, it could be really demotivating to Starbucks teams if all they ever heard about was high standards and how they're not living up to them. That's why Starbucks doesn't focus on blame and punishment. Rather, it gives rewards for those that achieve the high standards it sets.
Many times, for a roasting plant, for example, their goals and their bonuses are based on how well they're doing on usage variance. Are they creating savings through the process?
All of this tracking and correction is crucial for Starbucks to stay profitable in an era when commodity costs like coffee beans are rising. Recently, Starbucks rebounded from annual losses by initiating cost controls and locking in coffee prices for a year of expected increases by purchasing commodities options, contracts to buy coffee in the future at fixed prices. They not only beat industry analysts' predictions for profitability, but they were able to avoid raising their prices to customers in the process.
Within cost accounting, that's the thing I enjoy the most, is talking to each group, working through variances, understanding the different projects that people are working on, rather than just crunching numbers, and how much pride different groups take in what they do. It's nice.
Southwest Airlines is one of the most stunning success stories in the annals of American commercial aviation. But 4 decades ago, it was just a small regional company attempting to carve out a niche.
Really, the successes of Southwest started very organically. It was rooted in perseverance. It was rooted in just trying to come into existence. What it's evolved into is a process and a series of processes that really enhance what has worked and minimize what hasn't, based on solid business decisions.
Many of those business decisions revolve around financial measures such as variance analysis and return on investment. But part of that evolution and the processes that Brad referred to also include recognizing the importance of non-financial measures.
Southwest has this balanced scorecard approach where we look at the different perspectives as well, moving through the business model, and it touches everything that we do.
The Balanced Scorecard, a broad-based measurement approach used to evaluate performance, is a popular method used by over 50% of the largest companies in the United States. In basic terms, it incorporates financial and non-financial measures in an integrated system that links performance measurement and a company's strategic goals. Performance is evaluated from a series of perspectives, the 4 most common being the financial perspective, or the most traditional view of the company; the customer perspective, which evaluates how well the company is performing from the viewpoint of customers, who compare price, quality, product innovation, customer service, and other dimensions. The internal process perspective evaluates key operating processes such as product development, production, delivery, and after-sale service. Finally, the learning and growth perspective evaluates how well the company develops and retains employees. Let's take a look at the Balanced Scorecard in action at Southwest. From the financial perspective, fuel and labor are the largest costs, so the focus is on making flights as efficient as possible.
More sophisticated extensions that look at capacity modeling, how many people are going to fly on our aircraft, when and where, and then we use those to understand how individual flights and how individual airports contribute to the profits of the business. But also, that translates to the customer experience, making sure that those metrics are being addressed.
This type of translation is common because balanced scorecard objectives are linked across perspectives in order to tie performance measurement to company goals, goals which can easily be communicated to flight and ground crews.
Customers have never been shy about letting us know what they want, but if you're not providing a service that people want at the time that they want it, how they want it, then you're not ultimately going to be financially successful. And so we have teams that inquire often. We have teams that observe, we have teams that measure what's working and what isn't, and constantly there is this refining of the business model. And then we have a number of internal processes. Another perspective here on this balanced scorecard approach, which really speaks back to what customers told us they wanted out of the business model.
A good example of customer feedback leading to changes internally occurred when Southwest Airlines decided to change their longtime open seating policy.
It's a little sensitive, but the term cattle call had often been applied to our boarding process. People actually made fun of it at the time, but it was efficient. It worked for us. But this is one that you really had to get out of the box of thinking like an airline and doing it differently. What we found in the end was it wasn't assigned seating that was the issue. It was the fact that people didn't like the way they were having to board the aircraft. So we totally revolutionized that.
Southwest chose a system where passengers board the airplane in A, B, or C group based on how early they check in online. Once on board, they are still free to choose their own seat. The new system was a hit, but Southwest continues to garner feedback and refine it further, like when they introduced the early bird option.
And that's a recent enhancement, and it speaks back to the perspective of the financial health. Looking for incremental revenue, we are able to offer a service to people who would like to have that without being retributive or punishing the people who decide not to use it. If you elect to pay the early bird fee, which is $10 on top of any fare, we reserve a sooner place in the line for you to board the aircraft.
Of all the perspectives of the balanced scorecard approach, in a way, the learning and growth perspective may be the most important to Southwest because it involves employee retention.
Ultimately, the success of Southwest isn't on a spreadsheet, it's in the smiles of our employees, but you also see those smiles for years and years and years.
At Southwest, employee satisfaction is the priority, even above customers and stakeholders, because they believe happier employees provide better customer service and higher profits.
Southwest has a very low turnover. The success of this company really is predicated on the fact that our employees know that they are going to come first.
The airline business involves cutthroat competition and razor-thin profit margins. But tools like the Balanced Scorecard help companies like Southwest improve their numbers by looking beyond the numbers, making decisions across multiple perspectives.
And of course, every one of these decisions, every one of these new policies, every metric, every forward-looking statement ultimately goes back to the growth. And we learned from what we've done in the past. And so this is one of the successes that Southwest Airlines holds very dearly as we move forward.
At an estimated total cost of $550 million US, Holland America Cruise Line's the MS New Amsterdam is worth more than most mid-sized American companies. Since cruise ships are at the core of Holland's business model, building, maintaining, and upgrading them is critically important to the level of service they can offer the 700,000 passengers they carry annually.
You know, most people today just think of us as a cruise line. We're actually over 130 years old and started as a cargo and passenger transport company. In fact, we actually transported almost 1 million immigrants from Europe over to America, but we were also one of the first companies to do a vacation cruise. Way back in 1895, if you can believe that, there was already a market for a vacation type of an experience on a passenger vessel.
All companies, regardless of industry and size, must constantly determine how to invest resources. A capital expenditure is a major equipment or facility purchase that requires a significant capital or cash outlay to acquire. The process of making a capital expenditure decision is referred to as capital budgeting, and it involves choosing among various capital projects to find the one or ones that will maximize a company's return on its financial investment.
One of our major initiatives is to keep our product fresh and relevant for our brand. And so that means investing in the onboard experience, including the staterooms, the common areas, the back of the house technical features of our vessels.
Many companies follow a carefully prescribed process in capital budgeting, which includes 4 steps. 1. Project proposals are requested from departments, plants, and authorized personnel. 2. Proposals are screened by capital budget committees. 3. Officers determine which projects are worthy of funding. And 4. Board of Directors approves capital budget. Holland America starts this process in April of each year as Larry sits down with his CEO.
And we lay out a guideline as to what we think is a level of capital expenditures we can afford given projected profitability and cash flow of the company for the next budget season. Then we issue those guidelines to senior management in the company, and we hold meetings, and they come to the capital expenditure meetings with their basically wish list of what they think they need. Everybody comes in high, and but it's you don't want to come in with something that's frivolous. You need to present yourself that ultimately is going to help drive profitability, brand awareness, and I think we do a pretty good job of that.
There are 2 popular capital budgeting techniques for evaluating capital investments: cash payback and the net present value method. The cash payback technique identifies the time period required to recover the cost of the capital investment from the net annual cash flow produced by the investment. The formula, assuming equal net annual cash flows in each year, is cost of capital investment divided by estimated net annual cash flow equals cash payback period. The shorter the payback period, the more attractive the investment. Discounted cash flow techniques take into account both the time value of money and the estimated net cash flow from the investment. These are generally recognized as the most informative and best conceptual approaches to making capital budgeting decisions. The net present value decision rule is: accept the project if net present value is 0 or positive. Reject the project if net present value is negative. Holland America Cruise Lines strives for a specific minimum return on their investment, so they use the internal rate of return technique. The internal rate of return decision rule is: accept the project when the internal rate of return is equal to or greater than the required rate of return. Reject the project when the internal rate of return is less than the required rate of return. Ultimately, the capital budgeting evaluation process is one that follows a very specific set of guidelines.
And we use an internal rate of return of 14%. So we have a fairly high hurdle rate in order to get the capital expenditure approved.
At the same time, it isn't a perfect science, and there are many factors that can affect the best predictions. For that reason, they're very cautious. A cruise ship isn't like a copy machine or fleet car. A ship purchase at the wrong moment could have serious impact on Holland America's bottom line. As such, they always take care to perform post-audits, evaluations of a capital investment's actual performance. Post-audits create an incentive for managers to make accurate estimates, and they are useful for determining whether a company should continue, expand, or terminate a project. Walking around a Holland America ship with Larry is kind of fun. He's been at the company for over 25 years, and he has a great memory for numbers, so he can list everything about purchases and fleet upgrades. This ship, for example, was built in the mid-1990s for about $350 million, but they've since made over $40 million in upgrades.
One aspect of that I really enjoy about the job is the planning process. It's really the heart of your company. You know, generally, employees in a company want to see it grow. And for us, a new ship represents growth. It represents longevity, it represents job security. You know, you feel very proud about working for the company when you have new products coming online. And they're very well received by our guests.